Hello YouTube and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres again, and today I am going to be doing a second edition of the Graf Zeppelin Secondaries video that I put out just a couple of weeks ago, especially to go over the recent secondary battery changes to the German secondary battery guns. Before we get into that, however, the matches that I had to test this were kind of difficult to get a hold of. It took me 9 matches to get 3 that were even reasonably worth showing, just because of matchmaker and overall issues there. We also had a couple of random occurrences, up to and including this one right here. Yep, the friendly turpets decided to take a couple of pot shots at me. Something tells me that he was marked as TK at the start of the match for a good reason. Because there was really nothing to justify any of that. If he had moved at all, I wouldn't have rammed him. I think he seriously just decided he wanted to try and screw somebody's day over and realized that too much damage was going to be reflected on him to actually be able to actually screw me over too much. That's the best I can figure at any rate. But, yeah. He is also not going to be much help over the course of the remainder of the match either. He's going to be just kind of AFK at this point. Either that or he maybe was sitting there watching, I don't know. But the simple fact remains, that's his helpfulness is literally non-existent. So, there you have it. Anyway, this match is going to be rather interesting, as I'm sure some of you can already tell, simply because I'm already alone on an entire side of the map with basically, 4 or 5 enemy ships bearing down on me. I've got an Ognavoy, a Gearing, Ognavoy, there's a Cossack over there. I know there's a Gearing that's going to be popping up in there somewhere. And I've got 2 enemy battleships over there. So, this already is not looking especially good. Yeah. Now, fortunately, the Ognavoy looks like it's going to start turning out and away. So that's at least one thing. The Cossack, I think, is probably going to follow, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like it is, now that I can actually get a good glimpse at my mini-map. So, really, it's just going to be me against the Monarch, the Richelieu, and the Gearing that I know is coming. And the Gearing, unfortunately, is not going to turn away like the other 2. It is, in fact, going to choose to engage me. And you'll notice that the Turpets, the TK, AFK, whatever he is, Turpets, is really doing absolutely nothing. He's even backed away to the point where the enemies aren't even targeting him. I am literally the only thing either of these 3 ships actually have to shoot at. Which is where I suppose it's going to be very nice to say that the Graf Zeppelin is in fact an armored aircraft carrier, because otherwise this match would have been over very, very quickly. Yeah. Okay, anyway. But you can see me saying already on the mini-map and so on, just nope, I do not want to be in the middle of all of this, so I'm turning away and trying to retask my secondaries as best I can. I do initially launch my dive bombers, but then I see that there's a Gearing sitting at almost at point-blank range, 4.3 kilometers. So I retask, and now, let's count. Let's see, we're at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 seconds. 24 seconds at near point-blank range for the Graf Zeppelin's secondaries to utterly obliterate a full health gearing. Oh yeah, these secondaries are a lot more powerful than they were before. And it definitely saved my ass there, if I do say so. If this had been the previous patch, patch 8.5, well, let's just say that the 105mm secondary batteries on the Graf Zeppelin would not have had anywhere near as much impact against the 19mm of armor on the gearing. So that sudden boost to 25mm, well, it may not necessarily be much to do anything to a couple of these enemy battleships. They are still at least capable of doing full penetrative damage to the 19mm of armor on the gearing and most other even top tier 10 destroyers. So definitely some good progression in that regard. It's a nice quality of life improvement for the only secondary battery build capable aircraft carrier really in the game. So definitely good input here. And yes, just to show that I am somebody who values fair and cooperative gameplay, I did very much go in and report the enemy turpets for both poor play and unsupporting behavior. There was absolutely nothing to excuse any of his actions at the start of this match. So, yeah. Anyway. Beyond that, though, there really isn't much else that's going to be going on over the course of this battle, at least from the standpoint of what this video is supposed to be covering, so I will take this point to slip into post-battle results. 123,000 damage done overall, 221,000 credits, 2,467 EXP, 184 secondary battery hits, which is a very, well, it's not exactly a huge number, but it's definitely better than most other secondary battery ships, to not put too fine a point on it, or at least definitely a lot better than most other aircraft carriers would see on even a good day. 14 torpedo hits, 2 kills, among other things. But, I mean, overall, definitely not bad results. And when you consider that a lot of that was really kind of spread around between close-range targets, it's easy to see how some of these numbers could be a little bit interesting to look at. I was top of the team. Granted, I did end up fighting like half of the enemy team basically on my own, but, I mean, that's, I guess, neither here nor there. And, of course, our TK Turpets had absolutely no match input at all, to the point of getting absolutely nothing for the match. So I guess he kind of got his comeuppance. I would hope he got his comeuppance for that. Overall, 37,356 damage done just by the secondary batteries. And, well, it's not exactly the most impressive, but when you consider that the damage that was done to the enemy gearing was all by secondary batteries, I'd say it's definitely at least somewhat worth it. And of course, the remainder of that is spread out a good bit between a couple of the other ships, primarily, I think, the Cossack, the Ognivoy, the Monarch, and the Richelieu. Just because those were the only things that were really ever within my secondary battery range, and there were only a couple of them that I actually even had the opportunity to manually select for the secondary batteries as well. Overall, still not bad, and yeah, like I said, full damage to that gearing was purely from secondary batteries. It got worked over real fast. I mean, again, I as I said, that was, 22 seconds after selecting it for the secondary focus. So it got just absolutely eaten alive by my secondaries. That is not something that can be said of many aircraft carriers. So definitely good, strong secondary batteries on the Graf Zeppelin. And of course, as far as other things go, my net income for the match, 171,000 credits. Commander earned 2,643 EXP. And just overall, still a very reasonable match. But again, considering what I had to deal with, I'd definitely say it was worth it. For the second match, we're pretty much just going to jump right in where everything got interesting. It certainly didn't have anything interesting aside from the regular CV play going on beforehand. But, I mean, I suppose some of you find that interesting. Personally, again, just because this is a video about the secondary batteries, I'm really not focusing on any of the aviation aspects. Now, before I launched this set of aircraft, I did choose the Abruzzi as my secondary batteries target. And my secondary batteries are going to start hitting it in very short order. I'm just kind of trying to work my aircraft around the side of this Roma so that I can drop torpedoes on it. And just, again, just trying to work on my positioning and get myself set up to make good drops. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think only 2 of those torpedoes are actually going to hit and do damage. Yep, the other one just kind of dropped a little bit too close to be able to actually arm. But, I mean, you can see my secondary battery count raking up against the Abruzzi, and that's the only damage that I'm doing to the Abruzzi, mind you. And, I mean, I land 110 hits on that Abruzzi before it actually succumbs. And granted, I also did basically... the only damage that I did to that Abruzzi was by my secondary batteries. So those numbers are definitely decent, to say the least. Especially when you consider that I really haven't... that overall the course of this match, I really hadn't done an incredible amount of work or damage with my aircraft. Of course, before I launched the dive bombers here, I did still retask my secondaries to the enemy Roma as well. So they're raking up hits again on the Roma for another 140 hits. So overall, that's 250 secondary battery hits on 2 separate targets. So that's a lot of guns, and granted, these are still smaller caliber secondaries, so for a couple of these ships, especially like, say, the Roma, these are really nothing, little more than mosquito bites. But the simple fact is, there's a lot of them in a very short time frame. With the buff to 25 millimeters of penetration as well, those little bug bites actually end up hurting. So I can definitely see how that Roma would have been very unhappy with me had it been a player, and same for the Abruzzi. And, I mean, you can see 25,000 damage done to the Abruzzi. Now, I didn't do full damage. I did not fully destroy the Abruzzi. I got credited for the kill, though. And even the Roma, well, yeah, the Roma, things started changing a little bit because I think the Roma does kind of have 27 millimeters of bow armor, so there I was probably getting a lot of secondary battery shatters. But the simple fact of the matter is these little needlepoint 105 millimeter batteries are actually capable of doing substantial damage to the lighter, more lightly armored targets now. So it's a huge change in the damage potential of the secondary build for this aircraft carrier. To be perfectly fair, the second match was kind of the worst of the good matches, so to speak. Within this 9-match string that I ran to actually get this video together. So, yeah, just getting the footage for this video together was painful, to say the least. I kept getting into top-tier matches where everything just kind of looked at me and I just ended up not being able to do much. I think just about everybody understands where I'm coming from when I say that getting stuck in a string of top tier matches as an aircraft carrier, or bottom tier matches as an aircraft carrier, really just sucks in general. So yeah, it hurt. And I just, for like 10 matches straight, I just got up-tiered so heavily that I could really just not get anything decent as far as any secondary battery footage for this aircraft carrier. Everything just either died too quickly, because that was the other thing. I had a habit of just getting full player teams, and well, in co-op especially, full player teams do tend to work over the enemy team very quickly. So it was one of those cases where also I just never got a chance to actually get close enough to anything to do any reasonable amount of damage with my secondaries either. So that is probably the one downside of me choosing to continue to move forward with co-op, but you know, that's my thing, and as I'm sure many of you will complain, that's just the way that's the way my channel is going to be. So sorry, kinda gonna just have to live with that. And I wouldn't do it if I didn't feel up to it. I was annoyed by the entire string of events, but again, I persisted. That, I suppose, is the main thing. I'm also going to go on record to say that I firmly believe that if I had tried doing this in random battles at all, the good matches probably just never would have happened, because the way the player dynamics, the way the team dynamics work in random battles is so very different that I think an aircraft carrier pushing in trying to get secondary battery hits on anything would have just been focused down and obliterated right out the bat, instead of any of the luck that I ended up with. So that, I suppose, is my trade-off, is that when I did have the good matches, I had the good matches. It wasn't iffy sort of pseudo-good matches where I just happened to do a good chunk of secondary battery damage while I got focused down in entirety. So there is that. Third match is probably going to be the best overall showcase for these secondaries, and, well, as you can see, I'm already doing a good workover of the enemy Gneisenau now, which I believe has that magical 25 millimeters of bow armor. I could be wrong, but it is still at least capable of fully receiving penetration damage from the secondary batteries on all counts from the Graf Zeppelin. So definitely doing good, solid damage to it with these secondary batteries. They're just kind of chunking away at it very, very nicely. And I do ultimately get the kill on it after my secondary batteries land 164 hits on it. Now, for this match as it is, I'm already up to, 217 if I'm looking at my counter right up there. So, very good. This is already better than either of the two matches you've seen already, pretty much. I retasked for the Massachusetts, and again, just working it over real fast, and right about now I think I surpassed the hit count for the second video. And I'm reasonably sure that the damage has already surpassed that of the second video as well from these secondary batteries. So very, very good secondary batteries overall, and they're just ticking away at that Massachusetts. And anybody who knows the Massachusetts as well also knows that the Massachusetts is no slouch in the secondary department as well, but when it's a pseudo-untrained bot, I don't have to worry about its secondaries anywhere near as much as it needs to worry about mine, as it gets just kind of finished off here. And unlike the Gneisenau, I do not land the kill on it. Now, where this match really gets interesting, though, isn't so much with the ships that I have already engaged so far. Now, granted, that's where I got the vast majority of my hits. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at, 390 hits? Yeah, 398 hits on that counter so far. So, this is not a small number. These are some good solid hits. These are numbers that even the Grosse Kurfürst and the Friedrich de Grosse actually dream about. In fact, I think even the Massachusetts can still only dream about a couple of these secondary battery numbers. But I've reached it very easily by pushing my aircraft carrier basically right into the middle of the fray. And I've gotten some really phenomenal numbers. But it's only going to get better because I am the closest ship, yes, the closest ship to the enemy aircraft carrier, the Implacable. And, well, you can already know what I'm intending on doing here. I am fully intent on using this ship's speed to push into the Implacable, get her within my secondary battery range, and really give her a good working over with my secondary batteries. And, oh boy, am I going to work her over with the secondary batteries. Now, that being said, this was still an aircraft carrier match, and I was concerned that somebody, namely one of the battleships, was going to take a shot at the Implacable and knock it out from long range before I could even do anything to it. But, so I am trying to do what I can with my aircraft in the meantime. And, well, I'm attacking an aircraft carrier, and these things are not exactly poorly known for their AA defenses. So, yeah, I am losing aircraft left and right trying to airstrike this Implacable. But that's going to change very, very quickly. I do close the gap, get in range, select as my secondary battery target, and now the aircraft become basically irrelevant because I can do to the Implacable what it cannot do to me. I think my secondary batteries outclass it by at least 4 or 5 kilometers. So, yeah, it's just going to eat secondary battery shells like there's no tomorrow. And aside from trying to launch random little squadrons that are already basically fully depleted, it's got nothing it can do to me. Whereas I've got everything that I can do to it, and you can just see that hit counter, the damage counter just ticking and ticking away as the hits just keep landing. And I do score the kill shot as well, after landing, what was it, almost 200 secondary battery hits. So, oh yeah, that Implacable really wasn't happy with me in the long run. Of course, the final tally for the match, almost 100,000 damage done, 3 kills, 10 fires, 507 secondary battery hits. That is an insane number of secondary battery hits. I think the only time I've seen that many ribbons for anything else has been using my Harugumo's main gun battery. And trust me, that's saying something. Even the Harugumo's main gun battery, there are times where I still don't even hit 507, and those guns are weaker than the Graf Zeppelins. If only just slightly. 397 base EXP earned for that match, too, so good, solid numbers overall for this match. This was a phenomenal match, as far as everything goes, based on just the normal progression, where I didn't end up with a ally TK player that decided to leave me entirely alone on one side of the map. 109 secondary battery hits on the Implacable. 20,821 damage done just by the secondaries alone, on top of 15,000 by my aircraft. The Gneisenau took 8,400 damage from my secondary batteries. I mean, these are very, very solid numbers. And granted, while it's not necessarily enough to do a sizable chunk of damage, say if I had been facing that Gneisenau alone, but it's still a solid chunk of damage. I did 8,000 damage to the Mogami, and that was only 53 secondary battery hits. So, but the Mogami is also lightly armored compared to the Gneisenau now. My secondaries also did 13,000 to the Massachusetts, plus another 8,000 in fires. These are numbers that some ships dream of, again, for their secondary battery armament. So these secondaries are powerful. And I dare say that where the Graf Zeppelin does have some of its failings in its aircraft, if you decide to tailor her for a secondary battery build, it is very much worth it to supplement your damage, especially when you're capable of just choosing your manual secondary targets between aircraft squadrons. You have to make sure that you're keeping up with it. You can't just play just squadron spamming. You actually have to be willing to stop for a few seconds and take control of your secondaries. So that is the one downside of playing a Graf Zeppelin as a secondary build, is you do have to play her a little bit more actively on the surface as well. So I guess that's the one takeaway here, is just kind of be careful with how you play her when you choose your secondary battery build. But it is a very, very viable build. And if you look at my damage here, as far as this match, if I had just been relying on my aircraft, these numbers would have been pretty lousy. But because of my secondary batteries, because of the fires that they set, because of the damage that they did, I tacked on easily 70,000 damage above and beyond what my aircraft did. So definitely good for supplementing your damage results. Anyway, that is the reiteration of the Graf Zeppelin secondary battery test, post 8.6, and I hope you all found it useful and informative. On that note, I hope to catch you all again later. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you have enjoyed what you've seen here, and I hope to catch you all again next time. Have a good one. Happy hunting, folks. Stay safe out there.